The apology slipped out before she could stop it. I'm sorry. I don't really belong here. Her voice trembled, barely rising above the soft clink of silverware and low hum of conversation that filled the restaurant. It wasn't loud enough to draw attention, but it was enough to expose the quiet storm inside her chest. She stood near the entrance, fingers curled tightly around the strap of her worn handbag, as if holding on to it might keep her from falling apart. Everything about this place felt wrong for her. The polished floors, the soft glow of chandeliers, the kind of elegance that didn't just suggest wealth, it assumed it. She could feel the weight of it pressing down on her, whispering that she was out of place. Maybe she was. She almost turned around right then. Almost. Because it had taken everything to get here. Borrowed courage, borrowed time, even borrowed money for the bus fare. She had told herself just this once she would try. Just this once, she wouldn't let life shrink her into the background. But now, standing there, she wasn't so sure. Table for Emma? The hostess's voice cut gently through her thoughts. Emma nodded, swallowing hard. This way. Each step toward the table felt heavier than the last, like she was walking deeper into a life that wasn't hers. And when she saw him, already seated, straight-backed, composed, her breath caught. He looked exactly like the kind of man who belonged here. Sharp suit, confident posture, the kind of quiet authority that didn't need to announce itself. He glanced up as she approached, and for a moment, his expression softened, not with judgment, but with something quieter, curiosity. You must be Emma, he said, standing. His voice was calm, warm in a way she hadn't expected. I'm Daniel. She nodded again, unsure what to do with her hands, her words, herself. Hi. They sat. A silence followed, not awkward exactly, but uncertain, like two people standing on opposite sides of a bridge neither knew how to cross. Emma reached for the menu, more for something to hold than to read. The prices blurred together anyway, numbers that didn't belong in her world. I should probably be honest, she said quickly, before she lost the nerve. I don't usually do things like this. Blind dates, I mean. Daniel smiled faintly. Neither do I. She let out a small breath, but it didn't ease the tightness in her chest. I almost didn't come. Why did you? The question caught her off guard. Because I needed something to go right for once. But she didn't say that. I guess I wanted to see if something different could happen. He studied her for a moment. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that felt like he was actually listening. That's a good reason, he said. Before she could respond, a small voice broke through the moment. Daddy? Emma turned instinctively. A little girl stood a few steps away, no older than 6 or 7, her dark curls bouncing slightly as she tilted her head. Her eyes, bright, curious, and full of something Emma couldn't quite name, were fixed on her. Daniel's posture shifted instantly. Lily, he said gently, surprised. What are you doing here? I couldn't sleep, she said, walking closer without hesitation. Mrs. Carter said I could come say goodnight. Then she stopped, right in front of Emma, and stared. Not rudely, not shyly, just intently. Emma felt a flicker of self-consciousness rise again. She smoothed her sleeve, suddenly aware of every imperfection. Hi, Emma said softly, offering a small smile. The girl didn't smile back. Instead, her eyes widened. And then, you're from Daddy's story. The words landed like a dropped glass. Everything stopped. Daniel froze. Emma blinked, confused. I'm sorry? Lily stepped closer, her voice filled with certainty. You are. I know you are. Emma looked at Daniel, searching for an explanation. But his expression had changed. Something deeper now, something unsettled. Lily, he said carefully, what story are you talking about? The one you tell me, she said, as if it were obvious. About the lady who helped you when you were sad? Emma's breath caught. A strange, distant memory stirred, faint, almost forgotten. I don't think, Emma started. You had a blue scarf, Lily continued, her small voice unwavering. And you gave him your sandwich even though you didn't have another one. Emma's hand tightened around the edge of the table. The memory came rushing back. A cold afternoon. Years ago, a man sitting alone on a park bench staring at nothing. Not homeless. Not exactly. Just lost. The kind of lost that doesn't show on the outside. She had been on her lunch break, her own problems heavy on her shoulders. But something about him had made her stop. "You look like you could use this more than me," she had said, handing him her sandwich. He had looked up, surprised. "Why would you do that?" he had asked. She had shrugged. "Because sometimes people just need someone to notice." She hadn't stayed, hadn't asked his name, hadn't expected anything in return. It had been a small moment, one she had long since let fade, until now. Emma slowly looked at Daniel, and for the first time really looked, past the suit, past the confidence, into the eyes. And suddenly, "I remember you," she whispered. Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I was hoping you might." Silence settled between them again, but this time it wasn't uncertain. It was full. You're the one from the park," Emma said, her voice barely steady. He nodded. "I didn't know your name. I didn't know anything about you." But that moment, he paused, searching for the right words. "It stayed with me." Emma shook her head slightly, overwhelmed. "It was nothing. It wasn't nothing," he said firmly. "You showed kindness when you didn't have to. When you didn't even have enough for yourself." Lily climbed onto the chair beside him, resting her chin on her hands. "Daddy says that's the moment everything started changing," she added proudly. Emma looked between them, her chest tightening, not with anxiety this time, but with something deeper, emotion. "I didn't know," she said softly. "How could you?" Daniel replied. "You walked away, but I didn't." He leaned forward slightly. "I had just lost everything that day. My company, my confidence. I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. And then you, this stranger, treated me like I still mattered." Emma felt her eyes sting. "I just saw someone who looked like they needed help." "And that's exactly why it mattered," he said. Another pause. But this one felt like a bridge finally being crossed. Emma glanced down at the menu again, then back at him. "I almost didn't come tonight," she admitted. Daniel smiled gently. "I'm really glad you did." Lily beamed. "Me too. Now Daddy doesn't have to just tell the story anymore. You're here." Emma laughed softly, a sound that surprised even her. For the first time that night, she didn't feel out of place. She didn't feel small. She felt seen. The evening unfolded differently after that. Not like a blind date, like two paths reconnecting after years apart. They talked not about status or success, but about life, struggles, small victories, the quiet moments that shape who we become. And somewhere between the conversation and the laughter, Emma realized something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, not the fragile kind. The steady kind, the kind that grows quietly, rooted in something real. As they left the restaurant later that night, the air was cool, the city alive around them. Emma paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the lights. "I spent so long thinking small moments don't matter," she said. Daniel stepped beside her. "They matter more than we realize." She nodded. Because now she knew. A single act of kindness, a simple decision to care. It could echo in ways you never see coming. She had almost walked away that night, almost let doubt win, but she didn't. And because of that, a story that once lived only in memory had found its way back into reality, not as something remembered, but as something still being written.